Humans taste like nightmares. That image slammed into the chamber the instant the alien telepath's tendrils brushed my mind. One heartbeat he stood upright, crest pulsing with assured light. The next he folded to the floor like a stringless marionette. Gasps scattered through the assembly hall as a dozen species recoiled. Their trusted psychic crumpled at my feet, trembling and spilling fragments of thought that the translators turned into shreds of terrified speech. They'd brought me to be questioned, possibly judged. No one expected this. I hadn't moved. I sat as still as I could in the reinforced chair set in the center of the ring, the lone human among rows of observers whispering and shifting. The hall itself seemed alive, walls washed with faint bioluminescent patterns that pulsed to the crowd's mood. A moment earlier they'd been steady and curious. Now they stuttered wildly, casting panic over the chamber like a storm. The telepath on the tiles clawed weakly at the floor, his crest dimming. His peers hurried in, a pair of slender multi-armed Sarthi hauling at him, but he flinched as if their touch burned, his mandibles clicking in a staccato panic. He pointed a trembling limb at me. Through the translator his voice came raw. The void walks behind his thoughts. The hunger sleeps in him. No being should, no being should. The syllables broke into a keening pitch until it became unbearable. They had to carry him out, thrashing. The assembly stared like I'd committed an offense. But I hadn't. I couldn't have. I'd only sat there and let their telepath rummage in my head, assuming that was their verification. I hadn't tried to block him. Apparently I didn't need to. The presiding authority, a tall, glass-skinned Evelyn whose body split the chamber's shifting light, leaned from her crystalline podium. Her voice rang like struck metal. Human male, explain what occurred. What weapon hides in your mind? My throat went suddenly dry. I hadn't rehearsed for this. The delegation from Earth had sent me because I was expendable, a technician with basic diplomatic training, not a soldier or commander. I was to answer questions about our environment and survivability, then return home. Now every sensory organ in the chamber fixed on me. There's no weapon, I said at last. You asked him to read my mind. I didn't stop him. I didn't do anything. My voice cracked, then steadied. Maybe our minds are simply different. Murmurs rippled. A squad-spined Resith barked deception. A whisperer by the doorway muttered that shielding protocols should have been used. From the back I caught the hiss of a single word. Deathworlder. I hated that label. It had clung to us since humans first entered galactic councils. Dangerous world, volatile predators. That was the narrative. Survivors of a place most would never set foot on. We tried to show them our art, our music, our cultures, but they seemed only to notice violence. This display wouldn't help. The Avalon struck her podium with a crystalline claw, a resonant tone that stilled the murmurs. Proceed carefully, she intoned. The telepath's mind recoiled from something within the human's consciousness. We must know what it is. My stomach nodded. How could I explain the human mind? Memories of conflict, hunger, cold, fire, pressed against my thoughts like unwelcome ghosts. Generations of struggle lived inside me as they did in every human. If the alien had touched a shard of that, a war, a famine, the cruelties we had inflicted on one another, maybe it had been too much. But what haunted me most wasn't the memory he'd found. It was the look in his eyes before they carried him away. He had not only feared me. He had recoiled from whatever moved inside me, from something I carried without knowing. The Evelyn signaled, and another figure from the observers approached. Taller than the last, draped in ceremonial cloth and bearing the same telepathic crest, the newcomer made the crowd shift uneasily. Sending another so soon felt reckless, almost cruel, but the Evelyn was firm. We cannot proceed without verification. The human will submit again. I wanted to object, but I held my tongue. The alien stepped forward, eyes faintly aglow as his mind reached for mine. Brace. The touch was a breeze at the back of my thoughts. Curious, probing. I tried to remain calm, yet something stirred. A flash of fire, the echo of shouting, a battlefield I'd only seen in archive footage. The telepath shuddered, his crest flickering. He pressed deeper, as if trying to slice through to something clearer. He found more. Darkness. Hunger. The scrape of claws on stone, the tread of something stalking through forests. Fragments older than language, deeper than reason. He gasped, stumbled back and broke the link. Unlike his colleague, he did not collapse, but his voice was hoarse. This mind is layered with predators, storms, extinctions. It carries shadows that should not be remembered. The chamber erupted. Voices overlapped, translators scrambling. I sat frozen, staring at my hands, wondering what they perceived that I could not. Wondering what it was about us that made even seasoned minds flinch. The Evelyn's crystalline form tilted, refracting light until her outline sharpened. "Human male," she said with ringing clarity. "You will not leave this chamber until we comprehend the truth of your kind." The doors sealed with a low hum, locking me inside with the council and their uneasy silence. My pulse pounded, but I forced steady breaths. The alien who'd probed me leaned on his companions, his crest spasming like a lantern near guttering. Every few seconds his eyes flicked to me, wary and uncertain as though I might lash out. But I hadn't moved. I remained in the chair, hands open, posture intentionally relaxed. I tried to look harmless. The harder I tried, the clearer it became. It didn't matter. To them I wasn't harmless. Not anymore. The Avalon chairwoman tilted her crystalline head, scattering the chamber's glow across me like splinters of broken light. "You claim ignorance," she said, her voice a thin blade across the hall. "Yet 2 trained minds recoil from you as if burned. Such reactions are not random. Something lives in you, perhaps in all of your kind, that carries danger." "I don't know what they saw," I answered, forcing my voice even. "Human memories are not tidy. We carry them. Not only our private moments but our history, our tales, our shared scars. Maybe your telepaths tapped into that. Maybe they weren't ready for what we bear." That unleashed another ripple of whispers. The words collective scars translated oddly through alien mouths, and I could feel the unease spread. For species whose civilizations had held steady for millennia, the idea that trauma could lurk within a people as blood flows in veins must have sounded monstrous. A deep, leathery voice rose above the murmur. The Hesith delegate, scales bristling, leaned forward. "Your kind sprang from a world that devours its young. Predators upon predators, tempests that tear continents bare. I warned this council when you were welcomed. What you call memory we call contagion. If even your thoughts are tainted, you should be contained." Contained. The word dropped like a stone into my chest. The Evelyn didn't answer him outright. He turned back to me. "Human, explain. What shadows dwell in your mind that others perceive as predators and storms?" I hesitated. The honest answer was that I couldn't be sure. I'd never felt those things inside me the way the telepath described. But I knew enough of our past to imagine what could surface if someone peeled back the layers. "We remember everything," I said softly. "Not only as individuals but across generations. War, famine, catastrophe. Our ancestors carried fire through ice, survived plagues that halved populations. Those marks live in us. Maybe they leak through when someone reaches into our thoughts. Maybe it hits like standing too near a storm." The second telepath, still recovering, raised his voice. "It is more than storms," he warned. "There are forms in the human's mind that have no source in his life. Beasts that prowl the dark, wings spread across flame, the echo of dying children. It is as if memories not his own dwell there, yet they feel immediate." The chamber stirred with deeper dread. Delegates shifted as if distance might shield them. Whispers of Deathworlder rose like a chant. I tightened my jaw. "Those are stories," I insisted. "Myths we use to name fear. Every culture has them." But the telepath shook his head, crest trembling. "Not myths. These are imprints. I can tell the difference. They are living scars passed down so deep the bearer cannot separate them." The council erupted, voices sharper and angrier this time. Some called to restrict human access to shared archives immediately. Others argued for barring us from colonization pacts until we understood the nature of our memories. A few hissed that humans might weaponize their minds. Through it all I sat nailed to the chair, heat flushing my face. I hadn't come to defend a species. I was a technician for heaven's sake, but every sentence I spoke would shape Earth standing among them. At last the Evelyn struck her podium again. The crystalline note cut through the din and the hall hushed. We cannot decide in chaos. The council needs evidence. If the human mind holds only scars and stories, let us probe further. If it holds contagion, we must know before it spreads. My stomach dropped. Probe further. Another figure already moved from the ring of observers, encased in a shimmering helm meant to amplify and filter psychic contact. The crowd parted in uneasy silence, murmuring that a third probe was dangerous, reckless, perhaps necessary. The figure stopped before me, visor catching stray light, voice low and resolute. I will see what lies beneath. If your mind is shadow, I will seek the light within it. If none exists, the council must be warned. My breath snagged. I wanted to refuse to stand and walk out, but the sealed doors and 100 eyes left me no choice. Slowly I nodded. The helm brightened as his mind brushed mine. The first thing the third telepath touched was fire, not flames in the room but the memory of them. I was a child again, watching footage of the Great Chicago Blaze, walls of flame devouring whole streets, people jumping into rivers to escape. The alien stiffened, his psychic edge shivering as he took that image, but he did not pull back. He pushed deeper, down corridors where memory bled into instinct. Next came violence, not memories of my own deeds, but stories handed down since school. Grainy scenes from trench warfare, the thunder of shells, endless mud and wire. I felt him tense at these echoes of fear and endurance that weren't mine, yet had been lodged into me by education, culture, the human habit of retelling scars. His voice, filtered through the helm, flowed into the chamber. The human carries imprints that are not his. They live within him as if branded. These are not mere memories. They are inheritances. The audience shifted, but he continued, relentless. He brushed against survival itself, the way our kind clung to life through ages. I felt him flinch at the imprint of hunger, at the echo of famines where whole villages vanished while a few endured. He recoiled when he grazed predation, ancestors listening in darkness for a twig's snap, the low rumble of something larger, the instant of fight or flee embedded in bone. Then he went deeper, and the space between us seemed to narrow. Suddenly I was pulled with him. My own recollections welled up. Scraped knees from childhood, a near drowning at 10, the raw loneliness of my first night far from home. They flicked by, naked and immediate. He catalogued them without flinching. Then came darkness. Images I had never owned flitted through. Towers crumbling, bombs roaring, screams swallowed by silence. Some I recognized as recent human tragedies. Others were older, primal shadows passed down as instinct, fragments from ancestors who huddled in caves while storms split the sky. The telepath's crest pulsed erratically beneath the helm. His voice tightened. Your kind carries not only scars, he said, but the weight of 1,000 extinctions. Fire, ice, hunger, beasts, war. These live in each of you as though poised to awaken. The chamber murmured with rising fear, yet he did not stop. He sought beyond the storm, and suddenly his mind brushed against something that arrested us both with a moment of pure stillness. It was not memory. It was potential. He had reached the place in my mind where humanity dreams. Not merely surviving but reaching beyond survival. I felt it swell, images that seemed to await a witness. Cities rising from rubble, music spanning centuries, a hand pulling another from mud, rockets cleaving the sky, a blue world shrinking as ships carried us to the stars. The telepath gasped. His presence wavered, caught between dread and wonder. It is not only shadow, he breathed, voice trembling through the translator. They carry a fire that destroys and a fire that builds. They remember death but they dream life. They are a contradiction made flesh. The chamber fell silent. The delegates leaned in, unable to dismiss his words as mere terror. For the first time since they'd seated me, the weight in the room shifted, still guarded but now threaded with curiosity. The telepath withdrew, cutting the link cleanly. His body trembled, sweat beading along his crest while an attendant steadied him. The helm's glow dimmed. He raised a shaking limb toward me but did not crumple like the first, nor recoil like the second. When he spoke his voice was raw. "The human mind is not safe," he said. "But neither is it contagion. It is storm and seed. It may drown us. It may save us." His words spilled across the chamber like sparks. Some clutched at the warning, others at the possibility. I sat very still, trying to slow my breathing. My heart pounded from what he'd dredged up. I hadn't realized much of it lived inside me until he showed me. The Avalon chairwoman straightened, her crystalline form faintly luminous. "Storm and seed," she echoed, voice carrying. "Then this council must decide whether humanity is to be shielded from, or cultivated." Every gaze turned to me again, as if the choice depended not only on my species but on me, the single human in the room. In that instant, under the weight of their stares, I understood the trial had only just begun. The hush after the third telepath's words pressed against my chest. Delegates hung between fear and fascination, watching me as though I were at once a fragile specimen and a ticking device. My palms slicked on the arms of the chair, but I held my posture. Any sign of weakness here would be like bleeding before predators. The Avalon chair tapped her crystalline claw against the podium. The clear note cut the air. "Storm and seed," she repeated. "Such contradiction cannot be ignored. Yet we cannot treat them as we treat each other. Humanity has crossed our threshold. Perhaps we opened the doors too fast." Murmurs swelled, species clustering, tongues overlapping until the translators caught up. Some clamored for quarantine. Others whispered of opportunity, how storm and seed might both destroy and nourish. I sat frozen, trying not to let dread sink deeper. I hadn't volunteered for this. I come to answer questions about agriculture, atmosphere, engineering, things I actually knew. Instead, my people's place in the galaxy was being weighed against shadows in my head. The second telepath, still pale, stirred and spoke in a brittle voice that sliced through the din. "Containment will not work," he warned. "Wall them off and they will scale the walls. Deny them and they will find another path. That is what they are." The first telepath, carried back and steadier but still shaking, met my eyes. His crest glowed low, breath shallow, and when he spoke there was something like recognition in his tone. "They are death survived." The phrase rippled through the assembly. This time every translator rendered it plainly. The Avalon's body split the light into dancing shards as she raised her arms. "Then it is decided. Humanity will not be cast out nor locked away," she pronounced. "But they will not walk among us without caution. They will be observed, guided, tested further until we know whether storm brings ruin or growth." Delegates hissed and clicked in discontent, but none openly opposed her. I felt my stomach tilt. Observed, tested. Her crystalline form angled toward me. "You must understand, human male. What your kind carries is not solely yours. Touches all who come near. We will not discard you, but we cannot allow you to wander unchecked. You will return to your people with this judgment. The Council recognizes humanity as storm and seed. Your presence will be permitted, but every step will be watched." The pronouncement landed like a sentence, less final than I had feared, but binding nonetheless. I exhaled shakily and forced a nod. Survival at least I could accept. The chamber, however, had more to say. The third telepath, still trembling from the depth of the connection, lifted his helm and fixed his gaze on me. His voice, strained but certain, carried across the room. "Storm and seed. Do not see it as only curse. You carry ruin, yes, but also rising. Fire that builds, not only that which destroys. If you wish to walk among us, you must choose what to be." His words lay heavy like a challenge rather than mere counsel. I felt the truth in them. What he'd seen wasn't merely my private scars. It belonged to every human. We were all storm and seed at once, and no one else could declare which part would prevail. I leaned forward, picking my words with care. Then tell them this, I said. We remember because forgetting kills us. We keep our scars so we won't bleed the same wounds twice. If that makes us dangerous, so be it. But if you want to know whether we can build, give us the chance. We always build after the fire. Silence settled, but now it was not the hush of fear. It was heavier, thoughtful. Even the Hesith who had called us contagion fell quiet. For the first time a glimmer of respect flickered across more faces than I expected. The Avalon raised her crystal claw once more, sealing the council's verdict. The matter is settled, she declared. Humanity remains within the council. They shall be storm and seed until time reveals which truth defines them. The chamber doors opened as the audience dispersed. Some hurried away, still wary. Others lingered with a curiosity sharper than before. I sat frozen a moment until the guards motioned for me to rise. My legs trembled, but I stood. As I left, the third telepath met my eye. He didn't look away. His crest flared faintly, and for an instant I felt the echo of his thought. No words, just an image. A forest after rain, green shoots pushing up through ash. It steadied me as the chamber doors sealed behind. Storm and seed. Perhaps they'd been right. But one thing I understood as I stepped into the council's corridors. Storms do not ask permission, and seeds do not wait for approval. Humanity's place among the stars had been questioned, probed, nearly denied. Yet we remained, and we were not going anywhere.